In this tutorial, we're going to be exploring the Hotbox and seeing how it can improve the speed and efficiency of workflows in Maya. So you'll notice that I'm using Maya 2013, but if you have an older version of Maya, don't worry because the Hotbox hasn't changed really at all since the very early days of Maya. So before we look at the Hotbox, let's look at the sort of default way of accessing different menu sets in Maya. So along the top we've got the common menu sets, which are from File to Assets as well as Help. And then in between Assets and Help we have module specific menu sets such as Animation, Surfaces, Polygons, etc. And to switch between them you have to access this drop down menu to access the different menu sets, but that's where the benefit of the Hotbox comes in. If we hold down the spacebar, you might remember that tapping the spacebar will access different panels, but if we hold down the spacebar we bring up the Hotbox, right? And across the top we have the common menus from File to Assets and Help, and then in each of these lines we have the full menu sets from each of the modules: Animation, Polygon, Surfaces, Rendering, Particles, Dynamics, all of that. And so that really gives us a quick and easy way to access any menu in Maya. We also have here panel-specific menu sets. So along here from View, Shading, Lighting, Panels, those are all accessible right here. And this is contextual based on which window you are in. So if I just open up the UV texture editor here and pull up the Hotbox here, you can see that the panel-specific menus, polygons, subdivs, etc., match what's up here. So now that we have all of these menus accessible in Maya, or in the Hotbox in Maya, I find it useful to actually hide most of the user interface to give me the maximum working area. So to do that, we can hold down or hit Control Spacebar or Command Space on a Mac, and that gets rid of most of the user interface. And we also have these few items that we can get rid of by hitting Control M, that'll get rid of the main menus, Shift M, that'll get rid of the panel menus, and Control Shift M, and that'll get rid of the panel icons. So now you can see we have the maximum space available to work in our viewport. So let's take a closer look at some of the features of the Hotbox. Under Hotbox controls over here, you can see that we can customize which menu sets are showing up. I personally like having them all available, so I can go Hotbox controls, show all, and I'm holding down spacebar the whole time and using the left mouse button to access the menus. We can change the Hotbox style, whether we have zones or right mouse button pop-ups. I'm going to actually enable that, and I'll explain that in a sec. Sorry. We can set the transparency, and this is also a place where you can access the main menu bar and the panel menu bars if you forget the hotkeys, but they're Control M and Control Shift M and Shift M, so every combination of M. And you can customize this if you just want to show rendering only, or for example. Over here we have recent commands, and this is really useful for accessing the tools and operations that you've performed in the recent history. So you might recall that hitting G or Y will access the most recently used tool or command, but this will give you a longer history, so you can go back if you're frequently doing a few different operations in different orders repetitively. Another way that we can access menus in the Hotbox is by right mouse clicking in the center here, and this will give us access to the menu set that is activated in the, I'll just hit Control Space to bring back the interface. That's to activate the one that's currently selected in this drop down here. So if I choose Dynamics and then hold space and then right mouse click, then you see we have the Dynamics. I'm not sure, that seems a little bit redundant, so I can go in here and turn off the center zone right mouse button pop-ups because I don't necessarily find that very useful to have. If you find that you want to get your interface back and you don't remember how to do that, or if Control Space is only bringing some of the interface back, you can go to display UI elements and then show all UI elements, and that'll bring everything back except for the menus, which you can also access and get back by here. Show main menu bar, pane menu bars. Okay, so I'm just going to hide everything again. Okay, so now that we've looked at the menus that we can access in the Hotbox, let's take a look at the zones. And there are 5 zones in the Hotbox. There's a center zone, a north zone, east zone, south, and west zone. So let's start with the center zone. If we left click in the middle here, then we can access different modeling views, orthographic and perspective. And that's a really quick way to jump between modeling panes. You can also get to them by tapping the spacebar if you have the panel layout that is the 4 view. But we can also use the center zone and really quickly get back to our perspective view if you have a different pane layout, for example. The north zone is related because it changes the panel layout that you have. So by default, I think 4 view is the default layout. We can also change to hypershape perspective, which will pop up here, or whatever other layout you want. In the east zone, we have access to hiding and showing different UI elements. And this allows a bit more customization than just the control spacebar, show all or hide all user interface elements. I like to have a few interface components available to me all the time. The help line is helpful when it gives you tool tips and information like that. The status line up here gives me access to a few tools like selecting by name and renaming and transforming, and gives me access to molecular Maya and few other options that I like. The command line, where you can type in Mel and Python commands, and this is also the script editor output that will give you warnings and information about operations that you're doing. And that's pretty much all that I really need to have available to me for most of the time. But if you ever need to hide or show something like the time slider, you can do that from here. Let's take a look at the south zone. So the south zone will actually change the current view to each of these windows. So the graph editor, you can see that we're replaced by the graph editor. And if we hit spacebar, this is remembering the panel layout where we had the hypershade and the perspective, but we've changed the perspective to the graph editor, although we can, from the center zone, we can quickly change that back. And then finally over here on the west zone, we have access to selection masks, and what that allows us to do, I'm just going to create a few objects here. Okay, so if I have something, a polygon and a curve, sometimes the curve is difficult to select if it's underneath the polygon object. And so one thing we can do is turn on the nurbs mask, and what that'll allow us to do is only have objects selectable if they are nurbs or curves or surfaces or things related to that. So this is a way you can change selection masks. You can also change selection masks up here, and also from the right mouse button, component selection, object selection mode, that'll also change the selection mask. So that's just a quick tour of the Hotbox and some of the different areas that can improve speed when working in Maya. I find that the best way to become comfortable with using the Hotbox is to hide the user interface and force yourself to use it. And so if after you've been using it for a while, you'll become familiar with where the common menus that you need to access are. So hopefully that's been helpful. I'll see you in the next tutorial.